Hello and welcome to a special edition report of CEN, the Collective Entertainment Network. I, your DM John, am here with our wonderful player Mason as we do a special edition Meet the Odyssey episode, as we're going to go into depth about his new character for our upcoming adventure this September, where we will be delving into Odyssey of the Dragonlords. It was written by the team from BioWare, who invented things like Knights of the Old Republic and Mass Effect. And they wrote this adventure many years ago, and it's a wonderful step into the Greek world. If you like what you see, we play every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern till about midnight Eastern. Roundabouts, we play every Friday night, and if you would give us a like and a subscribe, ring that notification bell and help us on our ongoing boss battle against the ultimate BBEG, the YouTube algorithm. With that, why don't we go ahead and hop into it. Mason, hello, welcome. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to have you.
Always a great.
Just for the people to know, why don't we give a brief introduction to you and your experience with Dungeons and Dragons. I know other videos on our channel have this as well, so we don't have to go quite into depth as far as that goes, but just a basic little.
Well, I mean, I started playing Dungeons and Dragons actually before COVID occurred, which God, that was so long ago. But I started doing it as a kind of just getting a group together, that sort of thing. Didn't have anyone who was playing, so I thought, hey, you know what? I'll just run the game. It went okay. But from there, eventually I wanted to be more of a player myself. I found Ray in a looking for group post.
I didn't know that.
Game. Yeah, no, we didn't. Our first contact was basically through a looking for group page on Facebook.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, put in my notification, hopped into the game, joined in there. That's where I brought my illustrious wizard Mersu into that game.
Mersu.
And then you kind of know how. Yes, Mersu. That's Asriel lore now.
Well, I guess that's kind of the benefit of writing your own lore, right? You get to make your character.
I
just figured it was a tax.
Yeah, it was great. And you kind of know how it went from there. There was a guy in that group. He wanted to try running things. He kind of backed out of doing it. But I remember your exact words were, we got this time set aside. How about I'd be willing to run the game, and we can all keep playing this. And then that's where it kind of went into us playing like Descent into Avernus, a couple other different games, and then COVID happened and everything collapsed. But no, that's more or less my background really in D&D. I've been playing with this stream with Ray and with you and others for years now, and I absolutely love this game. I love being with RP with all you guys, and I think that honestly the biggest thing that makes a good D&D game worthwhile is finding people who you can mesh with.
Absolutely. Like that dynamic is not something that you can just sort of generate. And that's why when it comes to bringing in a new player, it had to be such like a fine-tuned selection process, because any one person can just throw off the whole vibe of the whole process and things. And that is not something that can just be generated. And that's one thing I love about coming back and playing with you guys so much again is like, I had gone through internet table to internet table, looking for group. And I just never had that really good mesh where it would connect. Or if I did, the DM quit. But yeah. The ultimate big bad evil guy, alas, isn't quite the YouTube algorithm. There's a secret boss past that for D&D, and that boss is adult schedules.
Yeah.
But as far as we're concerned right now, it's the YouTube algorithm. Like and subscribe, hit the bell.
Please do.
So we are ramping up. We just finished our Dragonflight, which was a prequel into this new campaign that we're going to be starting soon. As soon as we finish exploring into Asriel a little bit, it's going to be Odyssey of the Dragonlords, this big, major Greek-themed campaign. And before we get too far into the things about Odyssey the Dragonlord, the first thing I want to know, Mason, can you tell me and the people at home as well, what is your favorite Greek hero or mythology?
That one's on kind of hard to say because you get a whole lot of different modern takes on it. You have some characters who are typically portrayed as villains who are now portrayed as heroes. So if I was
Skeletons and hoodies with a three-headed puppy.
yeah, Hades is all the rage. If we're talking about like straight like great moments in Greek myth that I enjoy, I love the myth with Jason and the Argonauts, with Orpheus, who when they're passing by the Siren Islands, Orpheus, who is such a fantastic musician, is able to outplay an island of sirens whose music is supposed to be so enchanting it drives men to their deaths. But then here's Orpheus, who can play so well, they're not even interested in whatever the sirens are playing. The rest of the Argonauts, they don't care. Orpheus is better. But if we're talking also about modern renditions of Greek myth, I'm going to be honest. I am very partial to. Oh gosh, it just finished up. Why can't I remember its name? I feel so ashamed as a fan. Lore Olympus, which you can find on Webtoons. It's love story between Hades and Persephone. It's a retelling of it. Honestly, I feel like it's very, very well done. It's fantastic art, all this sort of stuff. Fantastic storyline to it. That would be probably my favorite modern rendering or retelling of an old story.
Makes sense. I like it. Okay, the next question I have for you. I've actually, Jason and the Argonauts, I talk about that one in particular during my session 0 in great detail when I explain this concept coming up. So it's serendipitous. You know, it's very interesting to me. That's the one that you started off with, was Jason and the Argonauts, the story of Orpheus, because I talk about that in my session 0 when I explain this next concept. But the theme of this campaign, per the book, is mythic heroism. And in session 0, I explain what that means to me, what the book says it means. But when you first hear that phrase as a first gut reaction, what does mythic heroism mean to you?
I typically think of it as almost like almost idealized heroism. Like there's the idea of what we believe a hero should be, and then a mythical heroism is against like supernatural odds, against odds that no mortal should be able to face against. And I would say typically in a lot of myths, it's almost idealized. But I would say it's more along the lines of being able to face odds that under no circumstance should be faceable, overcoming something that should never be able to be overcome, something that is impossible to do.
That's a really good answer.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like that a lot. I think that you really hit the nail right on the head. And piggybacking on what we were talking about earlier when we were talking about the interpersonal dynamics of a long-term group, that's one of the things I've been saving Odyssey of the Dragonlords. I tried to run it a long time ago for my friends, but COVID happened and it fell apart. But Odyssey is one of those campaigns where you have to have a really good and strong group because it can touch on some pretty dark or uncomfortable situations. Even as a viewer, that you have to be aware of because it is Greek themed, and some of those Greek myths are just
not pleasant. Not pleasant at all.
You don't want to be in them. And this is a very much a character-centric campaign. So, I mean, I've been harping on all of you all while you were building your characters and finding out who they were, that, you definitely have to build a character that fits into this world. And the way that they did that for this book, more than any other book, and it was really well executed, I think, is the epic path system. So before I ask anything else about your character, and without spoiling too much for the viewers or for yourself or what have you, what epic path did you pick, and why did you pick that epic path?
So for my character, I chose what was called the gifted one. The story of this one is it's a character who is They were talented beyond reason. They were so talented they actually drew jealousy from the those who were in the proper privileged positions. And they were given prestige. Basically, they're someone who through talent and through skill and ability were able to achieve a position they weren't supposed to under normal circumstances achieve. Um, and the reason why I chose it, oh gosh, that was so long ago. I feel like it's like I know I had a reason why I chose it originally. Um, I think part of it is well, the book gives you ideas of some of the things you get along the way, and obviously that's part of it. Um,
Do
but
you
I
want to go
think
into that, or do you want to keep that sort of to yourself?
I can keep that. I'm good with keeping that to myself. But I think part of it was, well, oftentimes I think when we think of a gifted one, we think of someone who is exclusively like intelligently gifted or someone who's exclusively artistically talented. And my character isn't necessarily an academic, and my character is actually very physically drawn, and um I think there's something to be said about someone who is able to be socially gifted, someone who's able to speak to people, someone who's able to draw people in, and as well as a character who's also just physically capable. Physicality, I definitely feel like is a talent, something that is built on just as much as any other talent. And I think there's just a lot of emphasis on, oh, a gifted one should be someone who is academics and all that. But that's not necessarily the way I wanted to go with that interpretation of this path.
All right. That's awesome. Now, segueing into that, now that we've discovered the big thing that ties you into this campaign, why don't you give us an introduction to your character, your class, subclass, your role, your backstory, what you want to share about your backstory to the viewers at home, at
Absolutely.
least, motivations, whatever it is.
So I will be playing Ozais Mithro of the Mithro Mountains. He is an Orid, a mountain nymph. Um, he is a male mountain nymph. Nymphs, those of you who know lore, typically in most legends and most myths, nymphs are depicted as beautiful women. But within this setting, it makes it clear that that is not necessarily the case. Nymphs are physically beautiful, resplendent people, being both male and female, and not necessarily just of feminine or androgynous beauty, but they can also be very, very powerful masculine beauty, which is, of course, the case for my character. Uh, but with Ozais, as far as his story and his story goes, he is a nymph from over 500 years prior to the setting of the campaign. He suffered a grievous injury in the course of trying to defend a village from a terrible attack on it. Well, probably I should go a little bit further back. Ozais was always an admirer of the Dragonlords, um, these powerful warriors who arrived into the land of Thylea upon the backs of dragons. He was always an admirer of their strength, of their leadership, of their you might say their righteous cause, their justice. And
Chutzpah.
yes, exactly. But he wanted to prove himself of being worthy of standing next to them. And he thought that if by defending these foreign races, these people who are not typical natives of Thylea, that he might be able to prove himself worthy. Unfortunately, he was grievously injured during such an attack and was forced into hibernation. It's something that nymphs can do to be able to, in some cases, return to the earth itself. But in Ozais' case, it was so that he could return to the earth and heal himself and restore his body. And by the time he came out of hibernation from this terrible, grievous injury, the Dragonlords were gone. They were no more to be seen. There was an oath of peace between the world of Thylea and the great titans that sought its destruction. And his dream was gone. His dream was shattered. But as time went by, while he drew himself back into isolation, not wanting to be part of the rest of the world, he then was drawn out by the godman Pythor, which in itself will be an interesting story. But to kind of cut it short, he grew to know grew to know the god Pythor, and eventually came to dwell in the city of the god king Pythor, the city of Historia, where he became part of his guard. He rose in prominence thanks to his talents and his abilities, and became the guard captain of the Sentinels of the Scouts of Historia. But as far as class and other things, he is what is called I'm going to switch back to my normal voice.
There you go.
He is an Earth Elementalist. It's a class from 2C Gaming Source called Epic Legacy. You introduced it to me, John. Originally,
Love 2C
Ozais, they're really creative with a lot of their stuff. But originally, Ozais was going to be a ranger. But after you showed me that resource, I was just like, no, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make him an Earth Elementalist.
He's going to be an
like,
earthbender.
Yeah, he's gonna be an Earthbender. I feel like it's gonna fit him so much better. I feel like it really fits the Mountain Oread style a little bit better. So he's definitely going to be an Earth Elementalist, and yeah, he's very much going to be lawful good, which I feel like will be a good contrast to some other people.
I feel like you have some people in mind.
Oh yeah, like there's this one person. Well, we can talk. Do we want to talk about that? We can talk about that if we want.
Oh, we'll get that.
We'll get that. Okay, but yeah, no, I feel like he'll be a good fit where he is both a native of the world of Thylea, but he aligns himself more with these people who most of the Fey folk of Thylea view as outsiders, as foreigners, as invaders almost. So he's sort of a bridge in and of himself between these two sides of the world.
I remember whenever you were first coming up with the character, one of the things I found most interesting was whenever you described the way that he heals those wounds. It's like the Japanese pots that they fill with the lines of gold.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was such a cool idea, and that was what sparked the entire Earth Elementalist thing. And I really do think that as a Mountain Nymph, being able to do that sort of naturey Elementalist type magic is just totally on point for the character. And as someone who has played an Elementalist through different levels, it's a very fun class. I loved playing that class. I played an Air Elementalist, and it was so good.
No, it's going to be fun. Like, you've already seen my character sheet. It's going to be a ton of fun. I feel like I've done a very good job of putting him together. I feel like he's just gonna kick butt.
Yeah, and I mean, you really tied in this character specifically. Thylea is a world that is filled with, the lore and oaths. The gods walk among people just like in Greek mythology. And so I feel like you made a character that really fits into the world. But what inspired you to make this character in this campaign specifically? If it's anything else other than what you've already said, you kind of covered that question a bit, I think.
So funny enough, like when we were deciding on doing this, I had already been thinking of, I'd really like to do a Swarmkeeper Ranger. But I wanted to do a Swarmkeeper Ranger because I'm sick and tired of seeing all these Swarmkeeper Rangers who their swarm is all insects. So I thought, because those are some of the examples it gives, but it doesn't say that your swarm, just says your swarm has to be a swarm of spirits. It doesn't have to be like an actual insect. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to make a character. And for whatever reason, I'm really feeling like I want him to have his swarm to be, I want his swarm to be gem dust, like the spirits of gems that dwell in the earth. And I feel like it'd be really, really cool. And that's kind of where it started going down towards the earthbender type combat style. which then eventually evolved. It's funny, he was originally going to be a ranged combatant, and now he's become a melee combatant.
Yeah, the way that the character sort of evolved like that, I really enjoyed the whole process. And I remember when you came to me with that character, the first thing I thought about was that one picture in Tasha's where they talk about the Swarmkeeper Ranger, and it's a halfling shooting magic chickens for his magic missile spells when they discuss how flavor is free. And that's really one thing that I keep telling players and people over and over again is flavor is free. You just look at the class like a big box of mechanics, and you can turn it into whatever you want. A mercy monk doesn't have to be a plague doctor if you don't want it to be. Take those mechanics and make it into a healer who does this, or a phoenix born character I've seen done with the mercy monk before, and the same thing with yours. Reflavoring it to be those rocks I think was really good. But when you started talking to me about mechanically what you wanted out of the Swarmkeeper Ranger, I felt that the Earth Elementalist was going to be a much better fit for you. And I'm really glad that you went that route when I suggested it. I think you're going to have, like I said, a ton of fun playing the Elementalist.
I'm so very looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to doing all sorts of fun stuff with him.
All right, next question on the docket I have down here. Greek mythology is filled with gods and men and hero who are famed, but just as famous as their strengths is their flaws. So what is Ozais' biggest flaw, you think? Is it hubris or something else?
I definitely would think that it's probably going to be along the lines of he has difficulty dealing with he has difficulty accepting opinions that don't really align up with what his preconceptions. Kind of like how we did in the little prologue that we did with 3 characters already, including Ozais. He has distinct difficulty dealing with anything that is contrary to how he already perceives the world.
Right. Unchanging as stone.
Exactly, yeah. Well, and I also think that that's very much something that could be with any of the long-lived races. Like, any of the long-lived races, like, what are you talking about? No, things don't change. Things return to how they're supposed to be. This is how the world works. It's how it worked for the last 50 years. It's how it's going to work for the next 50 years. I know. I've seen it for the last 300 years.
Just sit and talk with any grandparent or any senior citizen, you'll see it right there. And they don't live nearly as long as nymphs and elves and these immortal races in D&D.
Exactly. And I just very much think like his biggest issue is his biggest flaw is going to be taking an opinion that is contrary to his own. Except from those whom he specifically respects, whom he specifically knows, oh yeah, you have the right to call me out. Everyone else though, no. You don't get to tell me that I'm wrong or I'm incorrect.
All right, so I have some questions here from the fans that I'm going to ask you, and you just go ahead and let me know what you think, okay?
Okay.
All right, so first up is from a fan named Kyra, and Kyra has asked me to ask you, which of the 5 gods is your favorite, and why is it not Valis?
Well, for Ozais as a character, his favorite god is Pythor, because he lives in his city and serves Pythor and like vastly respects Pythor for his strength, his ability, in a strange way for almost the freedom that Pythor represents. In that here's this great and powerful god, but he has the freedom to be able to choose to bind himself to this city. If that makes sense. As for why it's not Valis, wisdom is his dump stat.
Fair enough. Bold choice. Let's see if it pays off, Cotton. Next up, Pythor has asked me to ask you, cheesy potatoes and wine or blood, sweat, and tears?
¿Por qué nos dos? Which means why not both? I feel like
that's a very Pythor answer, yeah.
the appropriate
Why
answer to
not both?
Pytho's question.
All right, Volcan has reached out and asked, "What is your wish list number one magic item for Volcania this year?"
Oh, for Volcania. Well, uh, unlike other nymphs, I would view that mountain nymphs have less of an issue of seeing markings appear on their skin, just because like mountains and stuff have a lot of strata, so they would kind of view markings and things as being it's almost like a mark of events and time and such. So his ideal gift, or at least one of them, would be the Eldritch Claw tattoo. Because why not
Eldritch
invest
Claw
more?
Tattoo. Very nice. Okay. Next up, Valis was reached out to but did not respond to comment. Oh. Lutheria has asked, "What is your favorite party that you've ever been to?"
Um, as Ozais,
Ozais, not Mason.
yeah. That's a tie between Pythor's birthday party from 5 years ago when he got it was really really great up until he got roaring drunk and decided that we were going to have a statue throwing contest to see who could skip a statue the furthest across the river. He won, of course. Um, but that's also contrasted to the one where Eritrea, one of the other characters, she had her first set of 5 wins in the gladiatorial arena, and we decided we were going to have a party down at the inn at the bar. Strangely enough, more alcohols was had, and that's where she invented gnome skipping. Which interesting that Eritrea and Pythor decided to do skipping on a celebratory day of something that you should not go skipping.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Let's see. Lord Sidon, master of the seas and time and war and power, asks where you want to be buried. That's morbid.
It's a little weird, but I guess Ozais would probably, if
Who's
he was
fielding
going
these questions?
if he was going to be buried, it would be back in the Mithril Mountains, where he will return to the Earth proper and be into hibernation, if need be, and then return one day as probably a new nymph.
Well, in the absence of Valis' question, let's field this one. Thylea is a rich world, like I said, that was written by the BioWare team. It's filled with lore, it's filled with great places and situations. Out of the places or factions, perhaps, that you've heard of, where or which are you most excited to see or explore in this campaign?
I'm going to exclude Astoria from this just because I feel like that's low hanging fruit. But honestly, I would say I would want to see. I want to kind of visit Mitros proper. Like it's technically it's part of some of the interplayer backstory stuff that some of us have going. But I don't know too much about it other than it's a location of both Temple of Sidon, Temple of the Five Gods, place where Valis rules as queen. But not haven't done too much in the way of like actual like exploring of the city itself. So I would say Mitros is one of those areas that I would like to see and I'd like to explore some, given the opportunity.
And of course, you can't forget King Acastus, Archleander the Great, first among the Dragonlords, commander of the Myrmidons, handsome, strong, and wise.
Of course not. I mean, you could, but of course you wouldn't. You could.
Let's talk about changing some gears from those very poorly fielded questions. What are some hopes or motivations for your character that you have?
As far as like hopes and things, um, I mean, there's the crush dashed ones of him ever being. He wanted to be a Dragon Lord. That was something he dreamed of when he first emerged, and he learned about the Dragonlords, and that's a bit of a crushed hope for him right now. It's a one that he's buried because there are no Dragonlords. I mean, sure, there's Arcleander, but there's no dragon to go with Arcleander. Um, but I would say that's probably one of his definitely dreams that has just been completely crushed and ruined. But conversely, he wants to see himself recognized as being a powerful and capable individual, someone worthy, at least to, if he can't be a dragon lord, at least to have a be able to rival one, to be able to should he perish someday, be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with one and as an equal.
One of those, definitely, especially with being, the chosen of the Oracle, destined for perhaps this great destiny, should you and your compatriots prove yourself in our upcoming episodes. The last thing that I have is, if you had a sending spell to the viewers, my very favorite questions, 25 words or less, what is it Ozais would say to everyone out there?
What would Ozais say to everyone? There is no such thing as a self-made man. You will always have people who will give you an opportunity to become more.
Well said, Ozais. And finally, Ozais has a best friend.
Yes.
We've danced around the subject a few times, but you and one of the other players, Rose, have intertwined your backstories to where you're sort of got this. Kyra has wrote in and said situationship, relationship question, but what's going on there?
Oh, we're just.
She also dotted all of her I's with hearts. I don't know what that's about.
I can't speak to that at all. But I mean, yeah. So way back when we were first starting to talk about this, I can't even remember what specifically led up to it, but was talking with Rose, and we decided, hey, how do we feel about like interconnecting our characters' backstories? Like we kind of already, our characters are already really like close to each other, like geographically in terms of our backstories. How about we just interconnect them? And to be honest, like over the last like several months, we've been writing like short little stories about,
I love that too.
yeah, about like just random stuff that we've done together, conversations we've had, how we address certain subjects. And it's one of those things where like Ozais basically travels down from Astoria to Mitros whenever Eritrea is doing gladiator stuff, or she might join him on a mountain trek through the mountains, unknowing that he's doing it as part of his scouting job. And they're very much like best friends, compatriots, who have coincidentally danced around and ignored the obvious signs of, hey, you always stop by Astoria whenever we go by, and you leave for a little bit and you say something about making reports, or hey, you have red hair. Who else do we know who has red hair? But they are definitely those sort of friends who they bonded over various different activities, but they've never really actually like sat down and talked about their backgrounds properly.
I gotcha. Definitely like the guy friends. It's like, oh, what did he say? He said, cool. What's his last name? Dan? Well, what's his last name? The man?
I don't know. I just know his gamer tag. That's it.
Yeah, right? All right, fantastic. Well, thank you for taking some time. Thank you guys for listening to this. Once again, I'm the DM Jon. We will be playing through Odyssey of the Dragonlords coming this fall, Friday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern to 12 p.m.
at the
12
furthest.
a.m. Eastern. That is 7 to 11 for me, and 5 to 9 for you, way out in Pacifico land.
Mm-hmm.
I'm John. This is Mason. He will be playing Ozais, the Elementalist, the Gifted One, when we go through Odyssey, the Dragonlords. This has been a production of CEN, the Collective Entertainment Network, and until next time, I will see you guys later. Have a great night.